The golden halls of Emperor Zathok's palace echoed with cruel laughter, as another delegation of would-be conquerors shuffled away in defeat. Their leader, a 7-foot-tall Corvan warrior with scales that gleamed like emeralds, clutched his wounded pride along with his bleeding arm. The bite marks were deep and his confidence was shattered. Next, Zathok's voice boomed across the vast throne room, his 4 eyes gleaming with amusement. The Emperor of Nexus Prime stood 12 feet tall, his crystalline skin refracting the light from 1,000 floating orbs that illuminated his domain. For 3 cycles now, he had issued the same challenge to every species that dared claim dominance over his world. The rules were simple enough to understand, yet impossible to achieve. Anyone who could tame Shadowmaw, the apex predator of Nexus Prime, would be granted ownership of the entire planet and its vast mineral wealth. The creature lived in the depths of the palace's lower levels, in a specially constructed arena that had become a graveyard for the ambitions of countless civilizations. Ambassador Kellyan of the Trade Federation stepped forward, his mechanical limbs whirring softly as he approached the throne. Behind him walked representatives from 12 different species, each convinced they possessed the key to success where others had failed. There were the Psychic Vorthak with their mind control abilities, the technologically advanced Zenith Collective with their neural disruptors, and even a group of flame dancers who claimed their fire magic could subdue any beast. "Your Imperial Majesty," Kellyan began, his synthesized voice carrying across the chamber, "we present ourselves as candidates for your challenge. Our Federation has studied the behavioral patterns of over 10,000 predatory species across the galaxy. We are confident that our combined expertise will succeed, where individual efforts have failed." Zathok leaned back in his throne, carved from a single piece of living crystal that pulsed with inner light. His expression showed the boredom of someone who had heard these confident proclamations far too many times. The betting pools in the palace had stopped taking wagers on newcomers surviving more than 5 minutes with Shadowmaw. "Confidence," the Emperor mused, his voice carrying a note of dark humor. How refreshing. The last group was confident too. The Corvan warrior was certain his natural armor would protect him. The ethereal monks believed their spiritual connection to all living things would allow them to commune with the beast. The cyber knights thought their enhanced reflexes and tactical implants would give them an advantage. He gestured toward a wall where holographic displays showed the gruesome fates of previous challengers. Shadowmaw was unlike anything in the known galaxy, a creature that stood 8 feet at the shoulder with midnight black fur that seemed to absorb light itself. Its 6 legs ended in claws that could slice through battle armor like paper, and its 3 heads each held rows of teeth designed for tearing apart anything that moved. But it was the creature's intelligence that made it truly terrifying. Shadowmaw didn't just hunt. It planned, it learned, and it seemed to take genuine pleasure in the fear of its prey. "The beast has never been tamed," Zathok continued, rising from his throne. "It has never shown submission to any being, artificial intelligence or force in this galaxy. It obeys me only because I am the one who feeds it, and even then I maintain a respectful distance." As if summoned by the mention of its name, a bone-chilling howl echoed from the depths of the palace. The sound made several of the delegation members step backward, their various forms of courage wavering. The howl was followed by the distinctive sound of claws scraping against metal, a reminder that Shadowmaw was always listening, always waiting for its next challenger. "However," Zathok said, spreading his arms wide in a gesture of false generosity, "I am nothing if not fair. You may observe the creature before making your attempt, learn its patterns, study its behavior, prepare your strategies. I will even allow you to witness the remains of previous challengers, should you wish to understand the full scope of what you face." The delegation murmured among themselves in 12 different languages and communication methods. Some used telepathy, others relied on pheromone releases, and a few communicated through complex light patterns. Their confidence was beginning to crack as the reality of the challenge settled in. Ambassador Kellyan straightened his mechanical spine. "We accept your generous offer, Your Imperial Majesty. We would like to observe the creature and prepare our approach." "Excellent." Zathok clapped his hands together, the sound ringing like crystal bells. "Guards, escort our guests to the observation deck. Ensure they have a clear view of Shadowmaw's domain." As the delegation was led away, Zathok settled back into his throne with satisfaction. The challenge served multiple purposes beyond mere entertainment. It kept potential invaders at bay, maintained his reputation as an unconquerable ruler, and provided Shadowmaw with regular meals. The beast had grown larger and more intelligent with each feeding, and Zathok suspected it was beginning to understand the game as well as he did. The Emperor's personal advisor, a small spider-like creature named Scrix, scuttled up the side of the throne. "Your Majesty, the latest intelligence reports suggest that a human delegation has departed from Earth and is en route to Nexus Prime. They should arrive within the next solar cycle." Zathok's four eyes widened with genuine interest. "Humans, how curious. I've heard whispers about this young species. They're supposed to be remarkably unremarkable. No natural armor, no psychic abilities, no advanced biotechnology. What could they possibly hope to accomplish here? Perhaps they seek trade agreements or scientific exchange," Scrick suggested, his multiple eyes glinting. "They are known for their diplomatic efforts throughout the Rim territories." Or perhaps, Zathok mused, a slow smile spreading across his crystalline features. "They're simply another overconfident species ready to feed my pet. Either way, they will provide entertainment. Make sure the arena is properly cleaned before they arrive. I want Shadowmaw to be hungry and alert for our human visitors." The Emperor's laughter echoed through the throne room once again, but this time there was genuine anticipation in the sound. Humans were an unknown quantity in a galaxy full of predictable species. Win or lose, they would certainly be interesting to watch. The human ship Endeavor descended through Nexus Prime's purple-tinted atmosphere, like a silver needle threading through silk. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge, watching the planet's surface resolve into details that the briefing materials hadn't adequately conveyed. The capital city sprawled across a continent-sized landmass, its spires reaching toward the sky like crystalline fingers. Even from orbit, the wealth and power of Emperor Zathok's domain was undeniable. "Approaching designated landing coordinates," announced Lieutenant Torres from the navigation station. "Local traffic control is guiding us to the diplomatic quarter of the spaceport." Chen nodded, her mind focused on the mission ahead. The United Earth government had sent her here not as a conqueror, but as an explorer and potential trading partner. Earth was still young in galactic terms, and they desperately needed access to the rare minerals that Nexus Prime was rumored to possess in abundance. The diplomatic briefing had mentioned Zathok's unusual challenge, but it was treated as a curiosity rather than a serious concern. "Captain," called out Dr. Marcus Webb from the science station, "I'm reading some unusual energy signatures from the planet's surface. The geological composition is unlike anything in our databases. The mineral wealth here could advance our technology by decades." Standing quietly near the observation port was the one member of the delegation who hadn't volunteered for the mission. 12-year-old Alex Chen, the captain's son, had been included only because of a bureaucratic mix-up and a last-minute family emergency back on Earth. He was supposed to have stayed with his grandmother, but when she fell ill, there was nowhere else for him to go. The mission couldn't be delayed, and so Alex found himself on his first interstellar journey. Wide-eyed and curious about everything around him, the boy pressed his face against the viewport, watching the alien landscape scroll by beneath them. He had read every book about xenobiology in the ship's database during the 3-week journey, and his young mind was filled with excitement about the possibility of encountering truly alien life forms. "Mom, look at those crystal formations," Alex said, pointing to massive structures that jutted from the planet's surface like geometric mountains. "Do you think they're natural or artificial?" "We'll find out soon enough," Chen replied, though her attention was focused on the communication panel where an incoming message was being decoded from the planetary government. The message was formal and flowery, welcoming the human delegation to Nexus Prime and extending an invitation to meet with Emperor Zathok at his earliest convenience. What struck Chen as odd was the underlying tone of amusement in the carefully worded diplomatic language, as if the Emperor found their arrival particularly entertaining for reasons that weren't immediately clear. The Endeavor touched down with barely a whisper, its advanced engines making the landing feel more like settling onto a cloud than touching solid ground. The spaceport was a marvel of engineering, with landing pads that seemed to be carved from single pieces of the same living crystal that dominated the planet's architecture. Alien ships of dozens of different designs occupied nearby pads, their crews visible as they went about their business with the casual efficiency of experienced space travelers. Within an hour, A delegation from the palace arrived to escort the humans to their audience with the emperor. The escort consisted of tall, graceful beings with skin that seemed to be made of polished metal, and voices that harmonized in musical tones when they spoke. They called themselves the Harmony Guard, and they served as Zathok's personal diplomatic corps. "Welcome to Nexus Prime, beings of Earth," their leader sang in perfect, if oddly melodic, English. "Emperor Zathok awaits your presence in the Grand Throne Room. We are honored to guide you to this momentous meeting." The journey to the palace took them through the heart of the capital city, where the architecture defied every human understanding of physics and engineering. Buildings flowed like water while maintaining perfect structural integrity, and transportation systems that looked like streams of liquid light carried citizens through the air between towering spires. Alex pressed his face against the window of their transport vehicle, his eyes wide with wonder. "This is incredible," he whispered to his mother. "How do they make buildings that can change shape like that?" Captain Chen was wondering the same thing, though her concerns were more practical. If the Nexus Prime civilization possessed technology this advanced, what could Earth possibly offer them in trade? Their mission suddenly seemed far more complicated than the initial briefings had suggested. The palace itself was a structure that seemed to exist in more dimensions than the human eye could properly process. It rose from the center of the city like a crystalline mountain, its faceted surfaces reflecting not just light but something deeper. Images of other places, other times, perhaps even other realities. The effect was beautiful and disorienting in equal measure. As their transport approached the main entrance, Alex noticed something that the adults had missed in their focus on the impressive architecture. In the shadows between the great crystal pillars that supported the palace's main structure, he caught glimpses of movement. Something large and dark was prowling in the depths of the building, something that moved with the fluid grace of a predator. "Mom," he said quietly, tugging on Captain Chen's sleeve. "There's something living in the palace. Something big." Chen followed her son's pointing finger but saw only shadows and crystal reflections. "It's probably just the way the light plays on the crystal surfaces," she said, though something in her son's tone made her uneasy. Alex had always been unusually observant, with an almost uncanny ability to notice details that adults missed. The Harmony Guard led them through corridors that seemed to sing with their own inner music, past chambers filled with technologies that Earth scientists would have given anything to study. They passed other delegations, alien beings of every conceivable shape and size, some heading toward the throne room, others moving away with expressions of defeat or frustration on their non-human faces. "Many visitors today," Alex observed to one of their guides. "Is there some kind of celebration?" The Harmony Guard's melodic laughter was like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Young human, your emperor has issued a challenge that draws many to our world. They come seeking to prove their worth and claim a great prize. Most leave with only the memory of their failure." As they approached the great doors of the throne room, carved from crystal so pure it seemed to hold galaxies within its depths, Captain Chen felt a growing sense that this diplomatic mission was about to become something far more complicated and dangerous than anyone back on Earth had anticipated. The sounds coming from beyond those doors, laughter, roars, and what might have been screams, suggested that Emperor Zathok's idea of diplomacy was unlike anything in the human experience. Alex squeezed his mother's hand, his young face serious with concentration. "Mom, I think we're about to meet something that's going to try to test us, and I don't think it's going to be a written exam." The throne room doors opened with a sound like breaking crystal, revealing a chamber so vast that its far walls disappeared into shimmering mist. Captain Chen led her small delegation forward, their footsteps echoing on floors that seemed to be made of compressed starlight. The human group looked tiny in the immense space. Just Chen, Dr. Webb, Communications Officer Rodriguez, and 12-year-old Alex, who walked with the fearless curiosity that only children possess. Emperor Zathok dominated the far end of the chamber, his 12-foot frame radiating power and amusement. His crystalline skin caught and reflected the light from thousands of floating orbs, creating patterns that were both beautiful and hypnotic. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of absolute authority. "Humans," he said, the word rolling off his tongue like he was tasting something exotic. "How delightfully unexpected. When I received word that Earth had sent a delegation, I wondered what manner of beings would emerge from that small blue world on the galaxy's rim. Captain Chen stepped forward and executed what she hoped was an appropriate diplomatic bow. Your Imperial Majesty, I am Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth Government. We come seeking peaceful relations and potential trade agreements between our peoples. Zathok's laughter filled the chamber like music played on crystal bells. Trade? How wonderfully naive. Tell me, Captain Chen, what could your young species possibly offer an empire that spans a dozen star systems and commands resources beyond your comprehension? Dr. Webb cleared his throat nervously. Your Majesty, while Earth may be young, we have made remarkable advances in several fields. Our biotechnology, our cultural diversity, our problem-solving approaches. Problem-solving? Zathok interrupted, his four eyes gleaming with sudden interest. How intriguing. You know, I do have a problem that has vexed the greatest minds and mightiest warriors in this galaxy. Perhaps your human problem-solving abilities might prove entertaining. The Emperor gestured, and the air above his throne shimmered. Holographic displays materialized, showing images that made the human delegation step back in shock. They saw a creature that defied every natural law they understood. A massive predator with midnight black fur, 6 powerful legs, and 3 heads that held intelligence as well as hunger. Meet Shadowmaw, Zathok announced with obvious pride. The apex predator of Nexus Prime and my personal pet. For 3 cycles, I have offered the same challenge to every species that has come to my world seeking dominance or alliance. Tame Shadowmaw, and all of Nexus Prime becomes yours. Its wealth, its technology, its strategic position in the galaxy. The holographic display showed scene after scene of previous challengers. Mighty warriors torn apart by claws that could slice through battle armor. Psychic masters whose mental powers proved useless against a mind that operated on frequencies they couldn't comprehend. Technology specialists whose advanced equipment was reduced to scrap metal in seconds. The creature has never been tamed, Zathok continued, settling back in his throne with the satisfaction of someone about to witness another entertaining failure. It recognizes only strength, and it has found every challenger lacking. But please don't let the fate of others discourage you. I'm sure your human problem-solving abilities will prove adequate. Captain Chen felt her blood run cold as she realized what was happening. This wasn't a diplomatic meeting, it was a death sentence disguised as a challenge. The Emperor was offering them a choice between attempting the impossible or admitting weakness and leaving empty-handed. Your Majesty, she began carefully, we appreciate the honor of your challenge, but we are a peaceful delegation. We have no warriors among us, no weapons, no excuses, Zathok finished with a wave of his hand. The challenge is not about weapons or warriors. It is about dominance, about proving your species worthy of respect in this galaxy, unless, of course, humans are content to remain insignificant beings from an insignificant world. The insult was carefully calculated, and Chen felt her diplomatic training warring with her natural human pride. She was about to respond when she felt a small hand slip into hers. Alex stepped forward, his 12-year-old frame dwarfed by the immensity of the throne room. Excuse me, Your Majesty, Alex said in a clear, steady voice that showed no trace of fear. Before we accept your challenge, could we see Shadowmaw? I mean, it seems only fair that we understand what we're dealing with. Zathok's 4 eyes focused on the boy with surprise. In all his cycles of issuing this challenge, no one had ever asked to simply observe first. They had all been so eager to prove their strength, their technology, their supposed superiority. You wish to see the beast, young human? Yes, sir. If we're going to try to tame something, we should probably understand it first. That's basic problem solving, right? Dr. Webb moved protectively closer to Alex. Your Majesty, the boy is just curious. Perhaps we could discuss the parameters of your challenge first. But Zathok was intrigued. There was something in the child's tone that was different from the bravado and confidence of previous challengers. The boy seemed genuinely interested rather than afraid or aggressive. Very well, the Emperor decided. I will grant your request, young human. You may observe Shadowmaw in its domain. But know this, once you have seen the creature, you must decide whether to accept the challenge or admit your species' inadequacy before the assembled court. Guards appeared as if from nowhere. Tall beings in crystal armor that moved with fluid grace. They gestured for the human delegation to follow, leading them through corridors that descended deep into the palace's lower levels. As they walked, Alex whispered to his mother, Mom, did you notice something about all those holographic recordings? What do you mean, honey? Every single challenger went in trying to fight or control the creature. But what if that's not what it wants? What if we're approaching this all wrong? Captain Chen looked down at her son with a mixture of pride and terror. At 12 years old, Alex was already thinking like a strategist, seeing patterns that trained diplomats and warriors had missed. But she was also acutely aware that his curiosity was leading them towards something that had killed countless, being stronger and more experienced than any human alive. The corridors grew darker as they descended, and the air carried a scent that was wild and primal. Somewhere ahead, Shadowmaw was waiting, and with each step, Chen realized that the fate of Earth's first major diplomatic contact might rest in the hands of a 12-year-old boy with an insatiable curiosity about the universe. The observation deck overlooked an arena that seemed carved from living shadow. The space was enormous, easily large enough to hold a city block with walls that rose into darkness beyond the reach of the scattered lighting. The floor was a mixture of natural rock and metal grating, scarred by countless claw marks and stained with substances that the human delegation preferred not to identify. Emperor Zathok stood beside them, his crystalline form radiating satisfaction. "Behold," he announced with theatrical pride, "the domain of Shadowmaw." At first, the arena appeared empty. Then Alex spotted movement in the depths of the shadows, and his breath caught in his throat. Shadowmaw emerged from the darkness like a nightmare-given form. The creature was even more imposing in person than the holographic displays had suggested. Each of its 6 legs was thicker than a tree trunk, ending in claws that scraped gouges in the metal flooring with every step. Its 3 heads moved independently, scanning the arena with intelligence that was unmistakably aware and calculating. But what struck Alex most profoundly was not the creature's size or obvious power. It was the way it moved. There was a rhythm to its prowling, a pattern that reminded him of something he had seen before. "It's pacing," he whispered to his mother. Captain Chen followed her son's gaze and saw what he meant. Shadowmaw wasn't randomly prowling its domain. It was following a specific route around the arena, pausing at certain points, investigating particular corners and alcoves. The behavior was almost routine. Dr. Webb activated his portable scanner, trying to gather data without drawing attention to himself. "Fascinating," he murmured. "The creature's movements suggest highly developed cognitive patterns. This isn't just a predator, it's an intelligence." "Of course it is," Zathok said, overhearing the comment. "That's what makes the challenge so delicious. Shadowmaw doesn't just hunt, it thinks, it plans, it learns. Every challenger becomes a lesson that makes it more dangerous." As if responding to the Emperor's voice, all 3 of Shadowmaw's heads turned toward the observation deck. The creature's eyes were like pools of liquid starlight, and when they focused on the human delegation, Alex felt a chill run down his spine. But it wasn't the chill of fear. It was the recognition of meeting another intelligence, something that was studying him just as intently as he was studying it. "Your Majesty," Communications Officer Rodriguez spoke up nervously. "How exactly does one attempt to tame such a creature? The previous challengers, what methods did they try?" Zathok gestured, and new holographic displays materialized around them, showing the recent attempts in gory detail. The Corvan warrior attempted to establish dominance through combat. The ethereal monks tried to create a psychic bond. The cyber knights used sonic frequencies and electromagnetic fields. The flame dancers attempted to subdue it with fire magic. Each recording showed the same pattern: challengers entering the arena with confidence, employing their species' greatest strengths, and then being systematically destroyed by a creature that seemed to understand and counter every approach. "But," Alex said quietly, "they all made the same mistake." The Emperor's 4 eyes fixed on the boy with sharp interest. "Explain." Alex pointed toward the arena where Shadowmaw had resumed its pacing. "They all went in trying to make it do something. But look at how it moves, how it investigates everything in its space. It's not just a predator, it's lonely." The statement hung in the air like a challenge to everything the Emperor believed about his pet. Dr. Webb stared at Alex in amazement, while Captain Chen felt her heart race as she realized her son was forming a theory that could get them all killed. "Lonely?" Zathok's voice carried a note of dangerous amusement. "Child, you see loneliness where countless warriors saw only hunger and aggression. But that's just it," Alex continued, his young voice gaining confidence. "All those warriors came in ready to fight or control. Nobody ever just talked to it, tried to understand what it wanted. He pointed to various spots in the arena where Shadowmaw repeatedly paused during its circuit. See how it stops at those places? It's not hunting, it's checking, like it's looking for something that isn't there, or someone. The observation deck fell silent except for the sound of claws on metal from below. Shadowmaw had completed another circuit and was now sitting on its haunches, all three heads tilted upward toward the humans. The creature's posture wasn't threatening. It was attentive, like a dog waiting for its owner to come home. The feeding schedule, Alex said suddenly. How often do you feed it? Zathok seemed surprised by the question. Twice per cycle, as befits a creature of its size and metabolism. But when? At regular times or just when challengers fail? At regular intervals, the Emperor admitted, and for the first time there was a note of uncertainty in his voice. Alex nodded as if this confirmed something important. So it knows when to expect food, when to expect interaction. But the only interaction it gets is with beings who come to fight or die. No wonder it's aggressive, it's frustrated and bored. Dr. Webb was frantically taking notes on his portable device. The behavioral patterns do suggest environmental stress, he whispered to Captain Chen. Apex predators in captivity often develop neurotic behaviors when their psychological needs aren't met. This is ridiculous, Zathok declared, but his voice lacked its earlier confidence. Shadowmaw is a perfect killing machine, not some pet-seeking companionship. Then why? Alex asked with the devastating logic that only children possess. Does it stop killing once its challenger is dead? Why doesn't it eat them? If it were just a killing machine, wouldn't it be constantly hungry? The Emperor opened his mouth to respond, then closed it again. In all his cycles of watching Shadowmaw dispatch challengers, he had never considered that detail. The creature did indeed stop once its opponent was defeated. It would return to its pacing, leaving the bodies untouched until the cleanup crews arrived. Below them, as if sensing the conversation above, Shadowmaw rose to its feet and approached the wall directly beneath the observation deck. It sat again, all three heads raised toward them, and released a sound that was unlike any of its previous roars or growls. It was almost plaintive. Mom, Alex whispered. I think it wants to meet us. Captain Chen looked down at her 12-year-old son, then at the massive predator below, then back at the Emperor, whose certainty was beginning to crack. She realized that they had reached a point where traditional diplomacy was useless. Either they would trust Alex's remarkable intuition about alien psychology, or they would admit defeat and return to Earth with nothing but the memory of an impossible challenge. Your Majesty, she said carefully, we would like to accept your challenge, but we'd like to do it our way, the human way. Zathok stared at her for a long moment, then began to laugh. But this time his laughter carried a note of genuine curiosity rather than cruel amusement. Very well, humans. Show me this problem-solving approach of yours, but know that failure means death and success. He paused as if considering the possibility for the first time. Success means you will have accomplished something I believed impossible. The arena's entrance was a massive airlock, designed to contain something that the galaxy's greatest engineers feared might escape. As the heavy doors sealed behind them, Alex felt the weight of absolute commitment. There was no turning back now. No diplomatic escape clause that could save them if his theory proved wrong. Captain Chen walked beside her son, her hand resting protectively on his shoulder. Dr. Webb and Officer Rodriguez flanked them, their instruments ready to record what would either be humanity's greatest triumph or its most spectacular failure. The arena floor felt solid beneath their feet, but the air carried the scent of wildness and barely contained power. Shadowmaw stood at the far end of the space, motionless as a living statue. All three heads tracked the human's movement with unwavering attention. The creature's eyes reflected the arena's dim lighting like captured stars, and its breathing was controlled, patient. Waiting. Remember, Alex whispered to the others. No sudden movements, no threatening gestures. We're not here to fight or dominate. We're here to meet. Above them, Emperor Zathok watched from the observation deck, his crystalline form tense with anticipation. The arena's communication system carried his voice down to them. The challenge begins now, humans. You have until Shadowmaw decides your fate. Alex took a step forward, separating himself from the group. His mother's instinctive grab for his arm fell short as he moved beyond her reach. Hello, Alex said in a clear, steady voice that carried across the arena. My name is Alex. We came here to meet you. Shadow Maw's central head tilted slightly, an almost dog-like gesture of curiosity. The creature remained motionless, but its ears, previously flattened against its heads, rose to attention. "We know you've met a lot of visitors," Alex continued, slowly walking closer. "But they all came here to fight you or try to control you. We just want to talk." Dr. Webb's scanner was picking up fascinating readings. "Alex," he whispered urgently, "the creature's biorhythms are changing. Stress indicators are decreasing." 20 feet from Shadow Maw, Alex stopped and sat down cross-legged on the arena floor. The action was so unexpected that even the creature seemed surprised, its three heads tilting in unison as if trying to understand this unprecedented behavior. "You're probably wondering why we're different," Alex said conversationally. "Well, humans are kind of strange. We make friends with lots of different species. On Earth, we live with creatures called dogs and cats and horses. Some people even make friends with animals that other humans think are scary." One of Shadow Maw's side heads lowered until it was almost touching the ground, bringing its eyes level with Alex. The boy could see his reflection in those alien pupils, and what he saw there wasn't hunger or aggression, it was curiosity. "The thing is," Alex continued, "we've noticed that most really smart creatures get lonely when they don't have anyone to talk to. And you're obviously really smart. I bet you understand everything that happens in this arena. You probably know exactly why all those other beings came here." Shadow Maw made a sound that was unlike any of its previous vocalizations. It was softer, almost conversational, as if it were trying to respond to Alex's words. From the observation deck, Zathok's voice carried a note of disbelief. "This is impossible. Shadow Maw has never shown interest in communication." "Maybe," Alex called back without taking his eyes off the creature. "Nobody ever tried to communicate with it before." The central head was now moving closer, and Alex could feel the warmth of Shadow Maw's breath. The creature's nostrils flared as it investigated this strange new visitor, who had broken every pattern it had learned to expect. "I know you probably can't understand all my words," Alex said gently, "but I think you understand intentions. We didn't come here with weapons or tools to control you. We came with curiosity." As if to test this theory, Alex slowly reached into his pocket and pulled out something that made the adults hold their breath: his lunch. It was just a simple sandwich that his mother had packed for the journey, but he unwrapped it carefully and held it out toward Shadow Maw. "I thought you might be hungry for something different," he said. "I know the Emperor feeds you, but this is just friendship food." Shadow Maw's three heads converged on the offered sandwich, sniffing it carefully. Then, with surprising delicacy for such a massive creature, it took the food with just the tip of its central mouth. The creature chewed thoughtfully, and Alex could swear he saw something like appreciation in its alien eyes. "Alex," Dr. Webb whispered urgently, "its brain activity is showing patterns we've never recorded. It's processing complex emotions, recognition, curiosity, and something that looks remarkably like gratitude." The transformation that followed was so gradual that the observers almost missed it. Shadow Maw began to settle onto the arena floor, its massive body relaxing in ways that suggested the creature was experiencing something new. Its three heads remained alert, but the hypervigilant tension that had characterized its previous encounters was gone. "You know what I think?" Alex said, leaning slightly closer. "I think you've been waiting for someone to see you as more than just a dangerous animal. You're not just a pet or a weapon, you're a person. A really big, really powerful person, but still a person with feelings and thoughts." Shadow Maw made another sound, this one almost like a purr but deeper, resonating through the arena floor. The creature shifted position, and to everyone's amazement it lowered its central head until it was resting on the ground near Alex. From above, Emperor Zathok's voice was barely a whisper. "In 3 cycles of challenges, no being has ever survived direct contact with Shadow Maw. Yet this human child sits beside it as if they were old friends." Alex reached out slowly, telegraphing his movement so the creature could see his intentions. When Shadow Maw didn't react negatively, he gently placed his hand on the side of the creature's massive head. The fur was softer than it appeared, with an almost silky texture that seemed to absorb warmth from his palm. Shadow Maw's eyes closed briefly and the purring sound grew stronger, vibrating through the arena floor and walls. "That's it," Alex whispered. "You just wanted someone to be kind to you. Captain Chen watched in stunned silence as her 12-year-old son accomplished what the galaxy's greatest warriors had died attempting. But she was beginning to understand that Alex hadn't tamed Shadowmaw at all. He had simply recognized that the creature didn't need taming. It needed understanding, Dr. Webb, she whispered. Are you recording all of this? Every second, Webb replied, his voice filled with awe. This is going to revolutionize xenobiology. The implications for interspecies communication are staggering. From the observation deck, they could hear heated conversations in multiple alien languages. Other delegations had arrived to witness what they assumed would be another failed challenge. But instead, they were seeing something unprecedented in galactic history. Alex stood up slowly, and Shadowmaw raised its head to follow his movement. The boy took a step back, then another, and the creature rose to its feet as well. Instead of the predatory stalking that had marked all previous encounters, Shadowmaw moved with casual grace, following Alex's lead like a companion rather than a hunter. Want to walk around? Alex asked. I'd love to see your home from your perspective. What followed was a leisurely tour of the arena, with Alex exploring while Shadowmaw padded alongside him. The creature showed him various features of its domain: alcoves where it rested, areas where it had left scratch marks that might have been attempts at artistic expression, and corners where it had apparently been trying to dig or modify its environment. You've been trying to make this place more comfortable, Alex observed, examining the scratch patterns. These aren't random marks, they're purposeful modifications. He turned to face the observation deck. Your Majesty, I think Shadowmaw has been trying to communicate with you for a long time. These marks in the arena, they're not just claw marks. They're like messages. Emperor Zathok's voice carried across the arena with a strange mixture of emotions. Messages? What manner of messages? Alex pointed to various patterns scratched into the walls and floor. Look at how they're arranged. They're not random destruction, they're organized, structured. Shadowmaw has been trying to tell you something. Dr. Webb was frantically scanning the patterns with his instruments. Alex is right. These marks show mathematical relationships, geometric patterns. This creature has been creating complex communications that no one bothered to interpret. The revelation sent shockwaves through the observation deck. Emperor Zathok, who had prided himself on possessing the galaxy's most dangerous pet, was slowly realizing that he had actually been keeping a prisoner, an intelligent being who had been trying to communicate for cycles. But that's not the most important thing, Alex continued, his young voice carrying across the arena. The important thing is that Shadowmaw doesn't want to be a weapon or a test for other people. Do you, friend? Shadowmaw made a sound that was unmistakably negative, shaking all three heads in what could only be interpreted as disagreement. See? Shadowmaw wants to be understood, to have conversations, to be treated as an equal. The challenge isn't about taming or dominating. It's about recognizing intelligence and treating it with respect. Alex walked back to the center of the arena, with Shadowmaw following closely. The massive creature settled down beside him, and Alex sat against its flank as if it were the most natural thing in the galaxy. Your Majesty, he called up to the observation deck, we accept your challenge, but we think there's been a misunderstanding about what success looks like. Shadowmaw isn't tamed, Shadowmaw is free. Free to choose friendship instead of fighting, communication instead of conquest. The arena fell silent except for the gentle rumbling of Shadowmaw's contentment. Above them, Emperor Zathok stared down at a scene that challenged everything he thought he knew about power, dominance, and the nature of intelligence itself. The silence that followed Alex's declaration stretched across the arena like a held breath. Emperor Zathok stood motionless on the observation deck, his crystalline form refracting the light into patterns that revealed his inner turmoil. For 3 cycles, his challenge had been the ultimate demonstration of his power. No being in the galaxy could tame Shadowmaw. Therefore, no being could challenge his dominance. Now a 12-year-old human child sat comfortably against the flank of the galaxy's most feared predator, chatting with it like they were old friends. This is impossible, Zathok finally whispered, but his voice carried across the arena's acoustics. Shadowmaw has killed champions from 100 worlds. It has torn apart beings with strength far beyond any human capability. Alex looked up from where he sat, one hand still resting on Shadowmaw's fur. But Your Majesty, they all made the same mistake. They assumed strength meant fighting. But what if real strength means understanding? What if the greatest power is the ability to see someone else's point of view? The Emperor's advisor Scrick scuttled closer to his master. Your Imperial Majesty, the other delegations are watching. If word spreads that a human child has succeeded where their greatest warriors failed, I know what it means, Zathok snapped, his four eyes never leaving the scene below. The question is, what exactly has the child accomplished? Dr. Webb stepped forward, his scanner still active. If I may, Your Majesty, the readings I'm getting suggest that Shadow Maw's neurological state has fundamentally changed. The aggression patterns that dominated its previous behavior have been replaced by what can only be described as contentment and curiosity. From the arena floor, Alex's voice rose again. Shadow Maw wants to show you something, Your Majesty. May we approach the observation deck? Before anyone could object, the massive creature was rising to its feet with Alex standing beside it. Together, they walked across the arena toward the wall directly beneath the observation deck. Shadow Maw reared up on its hind legs, bringing its three heads level with the viewing platform, while Alex climbed onto its back with the casual ease of a child who had just made a new friend. The assembled alien delegation stepped back in terror, but Alex remained perfectly calm, seated between Shadow Maw's shoulders as the creature balanced effortlessly on four legs. Look, Alex said, pointing to a section of the arena wall that was covered in scratch marks. These aren't random. Shadow Maw has been trying to create art. See how the lines follow patterns, how they spiral and connect? It's been trying to show you something beautiful. Dr. Webb trained his scanner on the wall markings and gasped. The mathematical precision is incredible. These patterns follow complex geometric relationships that suggest advanced understanding of spatial mathematics. But that's just the beginning, Alex continued. Shadow Maw, show them the other thing. The creature made a soft sound and carefully maneuvered to a different section of the wall. There, scratched with obvious care and precision, were symbols that bore an unmistakable resemblance to written language. It's been trying to learn your writing system, Alex explained, all those times you thought it was just scratching. At the walls in frustration, it was actually practicing, learning, trying, to communicate in a way you would understand. Emperor, Zathok approached the edge of the observation deck, his massive form trembling with emotions he couldn't name. You're saying that Shadow Maw has been trying to speak to me? For cycles, Alex confirmed. But nobody was listening. Everyone was too busy being afraid or trying to prove how strong they were. Shadow Maw made a series of soft sounds, almost like speech, while looking directly at the Emperor. The creature's three heads moved in what was clearly a deliberate pattern, each vocalization timed and purposeful. It's trying to say something, Zathok breathed. Alex nodded. I think it's saying hello, or maybe friend. It's hard to tell without knowing the language. But the intention is clear, Captain Chen, who had been watching this extraordinary exchange in stunned silence, finally found her voice. Your Majesty, it appears that your challenge has revealed something far more valuable than dominance or submission. It has revealed the possibility of genuine communication between species. The political implications were staggering. Every delegation in the observation deck represented a different approach to interspecies relations: conquest, trade, technological exchange, cultural dominance. But none of them had ever considered the radical concept that true strength might lie in the ability to recognize and respect intelligence wherever it was found. The boy has not tamed Shadow Maw, announced the leader of the Corvin delegation, his scaled features showing grudging respect. He has liberated it. And in doing so, added the representative from the ethereal monks, he has demonstrated a form of power that none of our species considered possible. Emperor Zathok looked down at Alex, who was now gently scratching behind one of Shadow Maw's ears while the massive creature purred like a cosmic engine. Child, do you understand what you have done? You have not simply succeeded at my challenge. You have made my challenge irrelevant. Alex tilted his head thoughtfully. Maybe that's what humans do best, Your Majesty. We don't just solve problems. We question whether the problems need to exist in the first place. But the terms of the challenge were clear, Zathok said, though his voice carried more wonder than authority. Whoever tames Shadow Maw claims Nexus Prime. Yet you claim you have not tamed the creature. That's right, Alex agreed cheerfully. Shadow Maw chose to be friends with us. That's not the same thing as being tamed. So technically, nobody wins your challenge because the challenge was based on a false assumption. The Emperor stared at the boy for a long moment, then threw back his head and laughed. But this time his laughter was not cruel or mocking. It was the sound of genuine delight and admiration. "You magnificent little creature," he said. "You have just taught an emperor something about the nature of power that I had never considered. You have shown me that the greatest strength is not the ability to dominate, but the wisdom to recognize when domination is unnecessary." Shadow Maw made another series of sounds, and this time, Emperor Zathok listened with the attention of someone trying to understand a conversation rather than simply hear noise. "Yes, old friend," he said softly. "I believe I am finally beginning to understand what you have been trying to tell me." 3 months after the day that became known as the First Understanding, Nexus Prime had transformed into something unprecedented in galactic history. The palace that had once echoed with the sounds of failed challenges now hummed with the conversations of unprecedented diplomatic cooperation. Alex sat in the gardens that had been built around Shadow Maw's new home, no longer an arena, but a vast park where the creature could roam freely while remaining connected to the palace's communication systems. The massive being lay contentedly nearby, occasionally making the soft rumbling sounds that Alex had learned were expressions of happiness. "The Interspecies Communication Academy is receiving applications from across the galaxy," Captain Chen reported, settling down beside her son. "Dr. Webb's research on nonverbal intelligence patterns has become required reading for diplomatic corps throughout 12 star systems." Alex scratched behind one of Shadow Maw's ears, smiling as the creature's purring intensified. "It's funny how everything changed once people started listening instead of just trying to prove how strong they were." The changes had been remarkable. Emperor Zathok had formally dissolved his challenge and instead issued a new invitation. Any species that could demonstrate genuine understanding of non-human intelligence would be welcomed as an equal partner in the Nexus Prime Alliance. The palace had become a center for xenological research and diplomatic innovation. "The Corvin delegation has requested permission to return," Dr. Webb announced, approaching their gathering spot. "They want to study your interaction methods with their own challenging species. Apparently they have a creature on their homeworld that they've been trying to tame for generations. Maybe they just need to ask it what it wants," Alex suggested with the matter-of-fact wisdom that had become his trademark. Emperor Zathok approached from the palace, his crystalline form now moving with a relaxed confidence that replaced his former imperious authority.
"Young Alex, Shadow Maw has been asking for you."
"It seems our friend has something new to show us." The Emperor's relationship with Shadow Maw had evolved dramatically. Once he began treating the creature as an intelligent being rather than a pet, their interactions had developed into genuine communication. Shadow Maw had learned to use different vocalizations for different concepts, while Zathok had mastered the art of listening to what was being expressed rather than simply hearing noise. They walked together through the gardens, where other diplomatic delegations were learning new approaches to interspecies contact. The ethereal monks had discovered that their psychic abilities worked far better when used for understanding rather than control. The Cyber Knights had reprogrammed their systems to focus on translation and communication rather than domination. "The galaxy is watching," Zathok said as they walked. "What began here as a simple challenge has become a revolution in how species interact with each other." Alex nodded, but his attention was focused on Shadow Maw, who had begun making a series of carefully modulated sounds while moving in precise patterns around a cleared area of the garden. "It's teaching us something new," Alex realized. "Look at the patterns, they're not random movements. Shadow Maw is demonstrating something." Dr. Webb activated his scanner and began recording. "The movements correspond to mathematical sequences. And the vocalizations, they're following harmonic progressions. Alex, I think Shadow Maw is teaching us its species' version of music and dance." What followed was an extraordinary cultural exchange. Shadow Maw demonstrated the artistic traditions of its people, complex movement patterns that told stories, harmonic vocalizations that conveyed emotions too subtle for simple words. In return, Alex shared human music from his personal device, watching as the creature's 3 heads tilted in fascination at the unfamiliar rhythms. "This is what we've been missing throughout galactic history," Captain Chen observed. "We've been so focused on conquest and competition that we never considered the possibility of genuine cultural exchange." The afternoon was interrupted by the arrival of a new delegation, representatives from Earth's united government, arriving in response to reports that seemed too extraordinary to believe. The delegation was led by Admiral Harrison, a stern woman who had expected to find her diplomatic team either dead or in desperate need of rescue. Instead, she found Captain Chen's son hosting an interspecies cultural festival in the gardens of the galaxy's most powerful emperor. Captain Chen, Admiral Harrison said carefully, "Your reports have been difficult to interpret. You claim to have successfully completed a challenge that has defeated the greatest warriors in known space." "Not completed, Admiral," Alex corrected politely. "Dissolved. We discovered that the challenge was based on a misunderstanding about the nature of intelligence and strength." Admiral Harrison stared at the 12-year-old boy who was casually leaning against a creature that could have torn apart a battlecruiser. "Son, do you realize what you've accomplished here?" "I made a friend," Alex said simply. "Everything else just followed from that." Emperor Zathok stepped forward, his presence still imposing despite his newfound humility. "Admiral Harrison, your species has given the galaxy a great gift, not through superior technology or military might, but through the simple wisdom of recognizing intelligence wherever it exists. We would like to propose a formal alliance," the Emperor continued, "not based on dominance or submission but on mutual understanding and respect. The Nexus Prime Confederation would be honored to welcome Earth as an equal partner. The offer was beyond anything Earth's government had dared hope for. Access to advanced technologies, trade networks spanning dozens of star systems, and a position of respect in galactic politics, all because a curious boy had seen past fear and aggression to recognize the loneliness of a misunderstood creature. But the most important thing," Alex said, standing and walking over to Shadowmaw, "is that nobody has to be alone anymore. Every species has something valuable to offer, something unique to share. We just have to be willing to listen." Shadowmaw made a sound that had become familiar to everyone in the garden, the vocalization that meant agreement and happiness. The creature gently nuzzled Alex with one of its massive heads, a gesture of affection that had once been unimaginable. As the sun set over Nexus Prime, painting the crystal spires in shades of gold and purple, Alex sat with his new friend and watched as representatives from dozens of species worked together on projects that would have been impossible just months before. The galaxy had discovered something more powerful than any weapon, more valuable than any resource. It had discovered the strength that comes from understanding, the power that emerges when intelligence recognizes and respects intelligence, regardless of the form it takes. Emperor Zathok's laughter echoed across the gardens one more time, but now it carried notes of joy and wonder rather than cruel amusement. The challenge that had once seemed impossible had been solved in the most human way possible, by recognizing that the problem itself was wrong, and that the greatest victories come not from conquest, but from connection. In the years that followed, the Nexus Prime Gardens would become a pilgrimage site for young beings from across the galaxy, all coming to learn the lesson that a 12-year-old human boy had taught an emperor, that true strength lies not in the ability to dominate others, but in the wisdom to recognize when domination is unnecessary and the courage to choose understanding instead.